worship leaders, offense and bitterness are real. I remember when I got my first worship pastor job, I thought that I had joined like a utopian tribe of people who believe the Bible, who live the Bible. Nothing would happen except for love. And maybe there'd be a tiff here and there, but at the end of the day, we would, conquer it, talk it through, and we would just learn to love even deeper. I very, very quickly realized that I was very, very young, and my idea of a utopian group of people who live this way just was not reality. This is not specific to some church or some denomination or some group of people. This happens in business worlds. It's everywhere. And there's one really simple reason why, because we're all human. If, the joke is that people said often is like, man, my business would be great if it wasn't for all the people I had to lead. My worship team would be great if it wasn't for all the people I had to lead, including myself. And just the human dynamic and the human nature that we have as people is there are going to be things sometimes that just rub us the wrong way, in the same way that in a marriage or a tight friendship. It's the commentator who said about marriage that, what if God didn't create marriage to make you happy, but to make you holy? In a lot of ways, I feel like friendships are meant to do that your, business is meant to do that. And definitely being a worship leader is meant to do that, because the Lord's after something greater than just, my happiness in my worship leading career. He's ultimately after having the entirety of my heart fully submitted to him. And one of the great ways that he does that is he uses people around us to help fashion and form that. Now, I'm not saying, I want to make this really, really clear, I'm not saying that the Lord causes abuse to happen. I'm not saying that the Lord caused the leader in your life or my life or whoever's life to do something that just like completely humiliated you or hurt you or cut you down or broke you. I'm not saying the Lord caused that to happen. But the Lord has given free will to you and free will to me. And throughout those situations and circumstances, we're going to rub each other wrong, and we have to choose love, because offense and bitterness are real. And I remember the first time when I really encountered an issue with someone, there was like, there was yelling involved, and I was just like, I was shell shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is horrible. Like I gotta get out of this place, and kind of freaking out because it was my first real experience, and it went really deep, really quick. I was like, this is like, what is happening? This should not be happening around Christians, right? And the Lord took me to Matthew chapter 5 during my quiet time one day, and I was like fed up. I was just really, really not happy. And it took me to Matthew chapter 5, and we all know this. If someone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other also, right? But this next little verse really, really caught my attention. And this is Jesus talking. He says, if you love someone who loves you, what reward are you going to get? And I was like, whoa, like obviously the implication there is like, if you love someone who already loves you, you're not going to get a reward. And I really began to wrestle with that verse. And I began to wrestle with this reality of like, wait a minute. Like, Jesus, you want to give me rewards for working through my bitterness and my jealousy and all these different things if I've been hurt. And I really just felt this like, yeah, that's what I want. I want to give you rewards. I don't know what that fully looks like. Hopefully it's in this age here on this earth. Hopefully it's for sure in the next age. The Bible talks a lot about rewards, and the Lord Jesus talks about rewards, eternal rewards in the next age more than anyone else in the Bible. But that's not my point in this context here. But in the book of Matthew, if you love those who love you, what reward will you get? And I set myself after that quiet time with the Lord. I said, Lord, I want rewards from you. I'm going to choose to forgive, and I'm going to choose to love. And obviously, when you sign up for that, signing up sometimes can feel all warm and fuzzy. It's like, oh, yes, I'm never going to do this again, or I'm never going to say this again. Like, thank you so much for your mercy. So you're so awesome. And then you see the person, the next day, or the first like encounter happens, and they rub you the wrong way, and they do it again. And it's just like, all right, that's it. We want to just like throw in the towel. And the Lord is just so kind, and he's so gracious to give us another opportunity to love. And what is just like grinding on the flesh is he's also so kind and so gracious to that person to give them another opportunity to love. And even though they might keep blowing it and blowing it and blowing it, and you're like, what in the world? Like, this is ridiculous. Choosing to love is going to win. Choosing to forgive, to overcome the bitterness and to overcome the feeling of angst that we have towards other people in the context of our worship team, in the context of your executive pastor, your senior pastor, or whoever's over you in your job. Now, I want to end this by giving a caveat that if there is abuse happening of any kind, get out. If there's abuse happening, that's not the time to just say, oh, I'm just going to go to my secret place and find a place of healing from my abuser. That's the time to get out. For me, biblically, I believe that David shows us a great model of this when he goes to serve King Saul. And, he's brought in and he's, playing the harp and doing all his music and singing. And what happens? We all know Saul throws a spear at him. And David's like, what in the world? Like, I'm just like the worship leader here. I come in, and like, what's going on? You're trying to kill me now? And he leaves. He doesn't flee the city, but he leaves the king's chambers, right? Now, one time is enough, but David comes again. Okay, I don't know how long it was in between times he was summoned to come play for the king. He comes again. And Saul throws another spear and tries to kill him. And what does David do? This time, he pieces out. He's like, I ain't sitting around here for that to happen again. I would say one time is enough, and one time is grounds for you to get out of the job, get out of the position, take a break from the position, get HR involved, get another pastor or elder involved. But after the second time, David's fled. He fled the kingdom of Saul. And then Saul was so demonized, he actually pursued him, and that's a whole separate story. But abuse is not okay. And it's not okay for you just to hang around and say, well, I'm learning humility. And, there's places out there, I've heard crazy stories where it's like, well, no, we believe in humility here. So you just have to take it. I've heard stories of like, well, that's one of the things that we have to really, that's the cost for seeing a move of God is, people, bigwig leaders, whoever it is, are just going to, abuse and be that way. And so that's the cost that we have to pay for a move of God. That is not true. I don't believe it for a second. I think that's garbage and that's horrible theology. We should all be on a road of healing. We should all, be in therapy. That's a whole nother thing to talk through. I know a huge pastor, and he's in like preventative therapy, preventative counseling, and his church pays for it. This is a big wig person, right? And so I think it's so important for us to not justify the abuse that someone's, bringing upon us, not to justify it and say, well, I deserved it, or I'm just the new guy, or I'm in a lowly position here. It's like, no, like you need to find healing from your heart. You need to have the wisdom to know when to bring in a third party or a fourth and a fifth and sixth party if one person's not sufficient to work through those types of things. So I wanted to give that caveat. If it's abuse, that's a completely different topic than what I'm talking about of finding forgiveness for someone and loving them even when they're so unlovable, and forgiving people, when they've wronged you or when they've hurt you. So important and so vital for our hearts as worship leaders.